Instead of recycle, why not upcycle? Let's join Nick Schmitz to learn more about people taking things old and making new again.
Welcome to Maker Village, man.
This is really cool.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Good to see
This
you.
is great.
Yeah, well, come check it out.
Yeah. Nick, where are we? What is this place?
So we are in Maker Village, which is a community shop located in Midtown, Kansas City. It's a place that has a lot of equipment, woodworking, metalworking, some digital fabrication equipment. You can imagine it kind of like a gym membership, except you get access to wood and metalworking equipment. It gets utilized by entrepreneurs, hobbyists, beginners who are maybe coming to take a class for the first time. And people come here to use reclaimed materials, to breathe new life into a new product. This place gets utilized for lots of different stuff.
Nick, can you talk to me about the philosophy behind the maker community of everything has a purpose, everything has a use?
Makers are creative. Makers look at discarded objects and see the value in what they can make with it. So, for instance, all the materials that we use for our classes comes from other fabrication shops. So this is all material that has been, part of a barn structure, someone's home, material that came from a fabrication facility that wasn't getting used, otherwise would be landfill material, but is super useful for classes and for building furniture and that sort of thing. So all this material, after it dries out, we denail it, we mill it, it will become, something new. It'll become a piece of furniture in somebody's home, a cutting board. It'll have a life and live on for hopefully, tens, hundreds of years. That's just one example of what we do to repurpose materials.
This idea of recycling things, of upcycling, taking maybe you have a lamp that's broken, and instead of throwing that lamp away and putting it in a landfill, you can come someplace like Maker Village and you can repair it yourself. You can learn how to repair it.
It's a kind of an intersection between people being frugal, right, and a little bit altruistic, thinking about the world as a not just where their spot in it, but as a kind of living organism that we're all a part of, and something that we want to make better and pass on to our kids. Yeah, so this is our metal fabrication area.
Nick, as I'm looking around the shop, I'm seeing a lot of pieces, a lot of tables and stools and shelving that all appear to be repurposed things. Was that a conscious decision when you were building out this space to try to reuse things as much as possible?
Yeah, when we first purchased the building, moved in, and started demoing a lot of the old structures and all the stuff and kind of cleaning it out, we tried to reuse as much material as we could. So, the stud framing for the bathroom became, workbench surfaces. Partly because these items have lasted so long already, we know that they're gonna, be a really durable thing to continue. And then also just it doesn't cost a lot, whether you're talking about the environment or the pocketbook if you reuse something.
Well, Nick, I appreciate you taking the time to show us around. Some really cool stuff happening here at Maker Village.
Of course, man. Thanks for dropping by.
Well, Whitney, thank you so much for inviting us into your studio.
Yeah.
I think the reason we're here is to talk about this, your dress.
Yeah, so it's just a panel design that I came up with, and I created it from about 4 pairs of thrifted jeans.
Oh, wow. So these were jeans that someone else had already gotten all their use out of, and now you're turning it into something else, something new?
Exactly.
That's great. Well, I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, let's head in.
I really love your studio. There's so much color. There's so much going on. What do you do here? What's going on in this space?
I am a Kansas City-based fashion and textile designer, so this is the space where I basically create every garment and accessory from start to finish.
The garments and stuff that you make, the accessories, are you selling these to boutiques, like bulk orders? Is it individual orders? Is it kind of a combination of both?
It's a mix, so I have an online shop, and I also do wholesale orders to boutiques.
And I'm looking at a lot of these garments, and I'm seeing, it looks like recycled fabrics. Are
Yeah.
you taking old things and making them new? Is that part of your style?
Yeah, so the big 3 elements of my work are color, pattern, and texture, and really reusing fabrics and kind of working with what I have just kind of helped me push that to the next level.
And how did that become part of your style? Is it something that you've been doing since you were young? Is it something new? Is it?
It kind of just started with, it was what I had to work with. I taught myself how to sew when I was 13, and I taught myself to sew because I was constantly growing out of my clothes. I was getting on my nerves, and remixing my clothes into something new was just a way for me to teach myself how to sew, and it just kind of gave me a new creative outlet. And so I always honor that still in my current work, and it's really just a way to be resourceful. Sometimes you don't have fabric, and sometimes you got to get projects done, and you're just like, what do I have that I can quickly turn into yardage or kind of make new?
Whitney, can you walk me through one of these garments? I see a lot of different elements.
Yeah, so this is actually a really special piece because this was like one of the first jackets that I ever remixed. So this kind of happened during my college years, and it's a mix of, like, I remember finding this blue leather jacket at the thrift store, and so I took it apart to use the fabric, and kind of got this jacket, took the sleeves off. This was the sleeves of an old sweatshirt that I took apart, re-dyed them. I dyed the jacket, and bringing more of that like textile design element in, I airbrushed a design on the back. It's really special just to kind of see where I started and where I'm heading.
That's great. So these are all garments. These are all fabrics that probably, I mean, they were in a thrift store, but maybe would have wound up in a landfill. Maybe would have been thrown away, discarded, and you've given them new life.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people think like, wow, I'm doing good, I'm donating to a thrift store, but thrift stores, they have to clear out their inventory as well. At the end of the day, they're still a business. And so if something doesn't sell through, they might end up throwing it out themselves. So this is just even the more basic thing of thinking about, I saw a jean jacket, I want to make it into something new. That's kind of like the more basic part of it. But even thinking about taking scrap materials, and it's going to take me a while to get this done, but the goal is to just be able to create a large piece of patched spandex and knit fabrics to then create a dress.
Whitney, I'm curious about this piece.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about this. What is this material?
Yeah, so this is actually interesting. So a big part too of like sustainability, there's options beyond reusing clothing that exists or fabric that already exists. So the denim in this skirt is actually it was from a mill, and it's dead stock. And so when fabric is dead stock, that means it's not being made anymore. They're trying to get rid of it. It stands a chance to end up in a landfill. So the regular denim I got from a supplier, and this fabric, this printed fabric, is digital print. And so as a textile designer, I design pretty much all of the patterns that you see on my clothes. And so this is a mix of like this black and white pattern I designed completely in the computer. But this one is like a mix of collage and digital manipulation, and like I scanned in brush strokes that I did. And the really nice thing is that like the textile industry has just grown leaps and bounds, because it used to be where if you wanted printed fabric, you would have to buy 30 yards minimum of that one fabric in that one style, that one print. And so I don't need 30 yards of just this by itself. Like, that's a lot. I'm not producing at that capacity. And it's nice to be able to work with digital printing services that print fabrics.
Yeah, there's so many innovations that are helping to limit the amount of waste that makers have. And I find this really interesting because when you think about makers and you think about the maker community, you're thinking a lot of like woodworking and metalworking, but to see those same sort of applications in textiles is really interesting, and something that I hadn't even thought of. Excited to see what you do.
Let's go in.
So Whitney, where are we?
We are at Scraps KC, and this is one of the places I come and get supplies, so general art supplies, and they have a lot of textile items here too.
Okay, great. So these are all textiles and supplies that were maybe in someone's sewing room, and it was all going to go
exactly
to waste?
And so basically people who like they don't need their supplies anymore, or they just have a lot of stuff they want to get rid of that's arts related, they can bring it to Scraps KC, and Scraps KC resells it to people like me
That's
who need
great.
supplies all the time.
That's great. And so someone like you that's maybe doing smaller orders or made-to-order items,
Right.
and you don't need a whole lot of
Exactly.
material. You can come here and get a small amount, so you're not wasting it.
Exactly. And too, it's like a great place to try to find some different materials to maybe experiment with, like things that you've just been kind of thinking about working with. And if you can find it here, that's great because it's like it's a small amount, you're not spending a whole lot, and you can just like really go for it and try some different things.
Yeah. So when you're walking through here and you're looking at these textiles, do you have a project in mind, or are you sort of looking for inspiration and maybe finding something that, a texture or a pattern that really jumps out? A little bit of both?
I say a little bit of both. It's very rarely that I come to scraps with like a set idea in mind, because you just never know what you're gonna find. And I really appreciate just how everything is kind of blocked off by color, because it makes it easier for me to just get excited about things. Like looking at this knit, I'm just already like, okay, I think I can make myself a few things out of this.
I feel like I'm in a mad scientist's laboratory, but we're not. We're in your home. We're here in Gardner, Kansas. What's going on? Why does one man own this many microscopes?
I was a medical illustrator for the University of Kansas Medical Center, and I was also in charge of the microscope laboratory called the Imaging Center. I got into microscopes, and there's wonderful, beautifully crafted precision instruments. And I thought, it's a shame that they try to, throw them away when one little part goes bad, like a bulb. They take specialized light bulbs. It's not just like you can stick any light bulb in there. LEDs do really good in these machines. So I thought, well, I 3D printed parts to fit, and the rest of it was off the shelf. And I fixed up my own Zeiss, this little red guy right down here. So it was supposed to be a hobby, and it turned into a career.
If I'm understanding you correctly, you're retrofitting parts and lights for these microscopes so this doesn't end up in a landfill.
That's right.
Continues to be used.
That's right.
Is this something that you could have done before digital fabrication, or?
No, I don't think so. I think the 3D printing technology is the most appropriate solution for this kind of production. You have a complicated part, there's lots of variables, there's lots of nuances from one scope to the next, and you can have a complex part without a complex price. And from one scope to the next, it's a completely different set of problems to solve. That's why 3D printing is so easy, lends itself so easily to this process.
So this is the Mad Scientist Laboratory.
Yeah.
I'm counting, we got 9 3D printers
Yeah,
going? Yeah. So it looks like you're designing over here, sending the 3D printers over
Yeah.
here. Walk me through this process.
Well, I have a whole bunch of Mac Minis over here that run the 3D printers. Each one of these computers, that's their only job, is 3D printing. So I kind of send them over here, and then they go to the printers here.
And then you're printing these guys.
Yes.
I imagine using the 3D printer, you're generating less waste because it's an additive process. It's not a, you're not taking away, you're adding to. So if you were to say, mill this out of aluminum, you'd have to start with a big block of aluminum, then you'd wind up with all these aluminum shavings, right?
That's right.
But aside from that, talk to me a little bit about the other steps. I'm hearing LED lights.
For a fraction of the power, I'm getting twice the use. And it's the same color temperature, because that's the microscope people are very particular about color temperature of light.
I imagine that your clients, if you're dealing with laboratories and you're dealing with scientists that have to be precise, I imagine that being able to control the temperature of the light.
That's right, the spot on with what they want, because normally they'd have to use different filters and things like that to get to the correct color temperature they want. This is the assembly department,
Okay.
where it all kind of comes together.
And I'm seeing a drawer full of goodies over here.
Yes.
These are all the electronic components?
Yeah, they got reflectors. This is one of the LEDs that I typically use.
Okay. Oh wow, yeah, so that is a lot smaller than what you would normally have in there. So,
And much more efficient too.
so it's smaller but puts out more power.
Yes.
We've been talking to a lot of makers, and we see this trend of exactly what you're doing. This idea of reusing, fixing, don't throw away. We've sort of become somewhat of a disposable society where everything you buy has a shelf life,
Right.
and after 3 years you throw it out and you get a new one. But I think there's sort of a philosophy within the maker community of that's not necessary.
Right.
Is that what drew you to this?
Yeah.
This
yes.
sort of.
I wanted to see less of these in the landfill. They need to be on a bench where they're helping someone find a cure to disease or something like that, you know.